In tonight's headlines, police arrest suspected drug runner after 6-kilometer car chase, which ended up injuring one officer and damaged several other vehicles. A pandemic-era loan scheme to help small and medium-sized enterprises will not be restored as the government tightens its purse strings. And the ban on aquatic products from 10 Japanese prefectures to stay in place despite a plea from Japanese authorities and the embargo. Police arrested a 40-year-old man on suspicion of furious driving, police assaulting, drug trafficking, among other charges, after the man tried to ram his way out of a police roadblock on Friday night in HOYIBC, injuring a police officer. The incident happened around 8 p.m. on Princess Margaret Road in HOYIBC. Online footage showed that a silver vehicle came to a halt with the rest of the traffic and tried to ram its way out. The car knocked down a police officer who was standing in the back and dragged him along the road, and then rammed into a black car in the front and finally stopped, with officers having drawn their guns. The suspect was then taken to the police car for investigation. The injured officer was sent to hospital for emergency treatment and is now in stable condition. According to the police, 4 other vehicles were also damaged during the capture with no further injuries reported. Wendy Choi, Assistant District Commander of Crime, said officers had drawn their guns to protect themselves and the nearby residents. She condemned the suspect for neglecting others' safety and emphasized that the incident was not a police chase, but a vehicle monitoring and searching. Choi added that prior to the incident, the force had already noticed the vehicle involved in 5 instances of running red lights and 3 cases of driving in the opposite lane, which prompted the subsequent stop and search operation. Upon arresting the suspect, police found 60 packs of suspected crack cocaine, meth, and ketamine in the car, worthy of $20,000. They also found a Hong Kong identity card which did not belong to the arrestee. According to the police, the vehicle belonged to a car rental company, who reported the suspect to the police when the vehicle was not returned in time and was suspected of hiding drugs. The case was handed over to the Kowloon City District Crime Unit for further investigation. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development Algernon Yao said the newly set up task force by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority demonstrated the government's pledge to provide steadfast support to small and medium-sized enterprises in the city. But currently, the relaunch of the 100% loan guarantee scheme was not on the table.
咁喺當時你都批出咗1400幾億嘅批准啦。
Taken to the airwaves in response to the Chamber of Commerce's request to reinstate the 100% loan guarantee scheme for SMEs launched during the pandemic, Yao clarified that the scheme was originally introduced during that time to address cash flow issues faced by SMEs. Yao noted that the government approved about $140 billion of supportive loans during the period, but default had amounted to $13.2 billion, which is too high for the government to burden. But the Commerce Chief also promised to closely monitor the situation for future consideration.
銀行一方面呢係要滿足監管對風險嘅要求。
Meanwhile, also speaking on the same radio program, Hang Seng Bank's senior advisor George Leung said, while the banking industry had its own obligation to fulfill the regulator's requirement on risk, the bank was committed to continuously reviewing the financial health of SMEs to propose financing solutions. He also promised that early loan recovery would only be a last resort unless the business wound up or seriously breached the consent. Also mentioning the bad debts, the top banker said they were primarily from commercial real estate investments, not among general SMEs. Quentin Yang, Cable News. The SAR government said it strongly disapproves and rejects an article by the New York Times titled "A History Museum Shows How China Wants to Remake Hong Kong," describing it as a biased reporting that carried false and misleading narratives against the new National Security Exhibition Gallery. A government spokesperson said in a statement that the gallery aims at enhancing visitors' appreciation of the positive significance of national security and deepening their general knowledge and understanding of it. The gallery had attracted droves of visitors, with more than 10,000 people visiting by the end of its fourth day since its opening, and it had received positive reviews. By criticizing such a gallery, the newspaper has demonstrated hypocrisy with double standards, the spokesperson added, as the article had completely ignored the large-scale and incessant riots that occurred in 2019 and the very fact of the failed attempt to stage the Hong Kong version of Color Revolution, while also deliberately neglected the fact that the implementation of the Hong Kong National Security Law has enabled the livelihood and economic activities of the Hong Kong community, and the business environment as well to return to normalcy. Finally, the spokesman said the government is committed to safeguarding national security and raising awareness among residents. It will continue to resolutely uphold the one country, two systems principle. Quentin Yap, Cable News.
Starting today, the MTR special-themed Whitehead train, a retro edition decorated with elements of the first-generation passenger train, will be running on 4 different lines across the city as part of the company's 45th anniversary celebrations. The train was displayed at Choi Home Station platform today before commencing service, allowing passengers to relive the nostalgia. MTR enthusiasts eagerly flocked to the platforms. Some even brought model trains they collected to take photos. The interior of the middle 4 cars of the themed trains looked exactly the same as 4 decades ago. The MTR company has also posted new and old photos in the train carriages, allowing passengers to look back on the past years. Touching the ball-shaped strap hangers, this father said the display could let his son know what things were like when he was young. Life is harder now compared to the old times. This visit reminded me of the time when Hong Kong was in its golden ages, when people were living happily, said this man, who chose to record the moment with a pen and sketch paper. This man, who was involved in the construction of the first MTR system, said the train system used to only have 10 stops, and now people can take the trains to anywhere in the city. It's such a progress, he added. The beloved Whitehead trains have already begun service on the Kwun Tong line and will subsequently run on the Island line, Tsuen Wan line, and Tseung Kwan O line until the end of the year. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Chief Executive John Lee released the second part of his policy address promotional video and revealed that he would hold his second community forum tomorrow in Mong Kok. In a social media video message featuring citizens from the transportation sector, low-income groups and the elderly, Lee said that the current term administration had been making continuous efforts in areas including healthcare, childcare, transportation and housing, as well as launching initiatives like community living room and school-based after-school care service scheme to improve residents' livelihood. The city's leader also called for citizens to keep on voicing their opinions and watch the live streaming of his second community discussion forum.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida visited Fukushima today, where he publicly had a sashimi of locally caught bonito and lobsters to prove food safety, 1 year after the stricken Fukushima nuclear power plant started discharging wastewater into the Pacific. When meeting with representatives from local fisheries cooperatives, Kishida said China's import restrictions were unacceptable as a measure that is not based on scientific evidence at all. He also urged China to immediately cancel the restrictions and said Japan will also continue to discharge Fukushima water. The export of Japanese seafood has suffered a significant drop of 16.9% following wastewater discharges from the Fukushima plant. The Japanese side blames the mainland and Hong Kong for suspending imports of Japanese marine products, which they said had caused the exports plummet. So far, a total of 60,000 tons of nuclear wastewater has been dumped into sea, and Tokyo Electric Power Company said the discharge of the remaining 70,000 tons will continue into 2051. In response, the SAR's Environment and Ecology Bureau said today that the release of wastewater was unprecedented and the government had to take precautionary measures. It does not rule out taking further action to safeguard the city's food safety. It said the government will continue to observe the impact of the discharge by looking at scientific data and reports by Japanese authorities and the International Atomic Energy Agency. In the mainland, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said yesterday that Japan's practice was extremely irresponsible as it is shifting risks to the road and that it was entirely legitimate, reasonable, and necessary for China and other countries to take precautionary measures. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
There was a heavy police presence at the site of a festival in the German city of Solingen this morning, where 3 people were stabbed to death and 5 others critically wounded in a horrific knife attack last night. The unidentified attacker is on the run, and authorities have launched a major manhunt to apprehend the culprit. Located roughly 540 kilometers west of the capital Berlin, the city with 160,000 inhabitants is in a state of shock and mourning. Out to celebrate the 650th anniversary of its founding, many residents of Solingen had gathered in the city square to watch a music performance where the attack took place. The lone attacker targeted passers-by at random and is believed to have deliberately stabbed the victims in the neck. Police have no indication who the perpetrator is and have no details of his appearance or whereabouts. Roads have been blocked and residents are told to stay indoors as officers carry out their search. The motive for the attack is still not clear.